Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Lance, you're back on the grid. Good to see you. Your computer problems are solved, supposedly.
Had some internet issues yesterday.
All right, good. Chris, good to see you out of Orlando. We were talking about the weather. A balmy 72 in December in Orlando. Good for you. Katie, I wanted to ask you about your weather. I already know what Seattle is. Anyway, welcome. Hey, we have a ton of news so let's get right to it. Let's go to the poll questions. Number one, have you had any problems processing your IRS 4506 forms?
Bob, I'm going to guess this might be 100% response for yes.
Yesterday, Lance, we had a 97 response on the poll, so we're starting with easier questions. Oh, what do you think about that, Lance?
Well, if you have a perfect 4506T, it gets processed. If you have a scratch mark somewhere on the form, they're probably going to reject it. So I'm pleased to see that. I have some challenges at time. An example is I had a borrower who moved after they filed their 19 taxes. They put their new address on the 4506T. I didn't catch it. It goes in, it gets rejected. Normally there's not a problem with IRS. There's a problem with the 4506T is not filled out perfectly according to the previous year's tax return.
Joseph, go back to the results. I've been being criticized. I know there's people in a conference room who don't have access to the PowerPoint. Yes, 46%, no, 24%, 30%. I don't know. So,
Bob, I'm going to take that as a 76% yes. No.
Yeah. Katie, what's going on with these new eyes? We saw that it's an eyes form. How does that affect us?
It's not a huge difference. I really don't remember all the details about it. I'm sorry about that. If we have a slide on, I can go over it. But I wasn't really prepared to talk about it.
There we go.
One of the most common issues, Bob, too, is you tell the borrower you need a 4506T. And previously, there was a 4506T released in March of 2019. There was one released in August of 2019. Well, the borrower says, oh, I've got that form, and they fill it out on the August one, which don't work.
Right. And now we'll soon have a new one.
Yep. Any major changes on this form, or is just pro forma?
It's basically the same form, Bob. I looked at it yesterday. There's no significant differences. But we have to, pay close attention, guys, to that date, March 1st, 2021, because on that date, you better have it on the 4506C.
That's right.
I think 2021 is a pipe dream for all of us right now. We'll worry about that when it comes.
If we get there. Yeah.
Oh, we'll get there. It's just what are we going to look like? Number two, Chris, this affects you. This came out this morning. Do you expect to take advantage of refinancing 504 loans? SBA has announced a change on that in their guidance. And we'll go through the procedures, but let's see. We got yes, 47%, no, 31, I don't know, 22. Chris, what does this mean?
Honestly, Bob, I haven't even gotten to it yet. I've been focusing on this new Senate bill that I'm thinking.
Okay, we'll talk about this. So, Katie, I think you're up to date on this. What's going on with the 504 refinance?
So this is just an extension of something we've already had for a few months here. All they've done is taken it. It was supposed to expire at the end of the month, and they have now extended it through March 31st. So otherwise, this is a rule that's already been in place for a little while.
Yeah. And we'll talk about, and I see a deferment in there. What are we talking about on that, guys? Katie?
So under SBA's 504 debt refinancing programs, when the loan applicant is seeking to refinance, was guaranteed a deferment, that this is just going to be extending that.
Okay, this is a deferment, not a forgiveness, correct, Lance?
Well, it's talking about you can do a 504 refi with a borrower who had a COVID-related deferment. That's what this
That's
is
what's
all
regarding.
about.
Okay.
And you look at doing refis, you got to get a payment transcript. So, it extends a program that they had in place.
Chris, is this popular with your house?
It's somewhat, not necessarily. I mean, again, as Lance just said, this is really just extending. It's just news to me, but it makes sense. If somebody had a deferment related to COVID-19 emergency this year, this is not going to prohibit them from being able to refinance it with
Now, historically, Bob, if you're refinancing say you had an internal commercial real estate loan and you're going to refinance it with a 504 for better rate and term, if there was a deferment somewhere in the payment transcript, you couldn't do it. But there was a program in place if it was COVID-related deferment that you can, in fact, go ahead and use 504 refinance.
Great. Real quick, this also came out this morning regarding credit memos on 504. And which of the following must you include in your 504 credit memo? 1, impact of cash flow with the existing PPP loan on the borrower's books. 2, impact of stay-at-home orders on the business footprint. Number 3, discussion of current market conditions on collateral value. 4, the impact of the vaccine on the borrower's customers' sales base.
Bob, number 4 is an interesting one.
Yeah, predict the future.
And they got it right. Yeah, number 4 is not required, but very good. And 1, 2, and 3 are all correct answers. So that's a gimme. 100% correct there, Lance.
Yeah, I was looking at that last one. I'm like, that's a new one on me, Bob.
Okay, let's talk about the news of the day. Katie, give us a quick overview, and then Chris is going to fill in some holes.
Sure. So last night we got a bit of a release. I haven't seen the full wording yet, but there's a $908 billion stimulus package. It's been split into 2, so there's $748 billion for PPP related things. And then the $160 billion that's left over has been set aside for some of the more controversial issues that they're worried about maybe possibly not passing, such as more funding for government and protection for businesses that receive funds. So as far as we know right now, it's going to simplify the Paycheck Protection Program, repeal the EIDL advanced deduction, provide hold harmless protection for PPP lenders as a set aside for $10 billion in new PPP funding for lending institutions with less than $10 billion in assets, provides business expenses that are tax deductible, even if it's covered by forgiven PPP loans. All of these things are things that we've seen a huge push for. So I think it's really encompassed all of those issues, and it brings together a lot of the issues that we've been talking about here on the show, mostly in separate bills, and is bringing them all together, which is great.
Katie, give us a big picture. What is, who's behind the bill? Is this House, Senate? Is this a co-sponsorship? What do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is coming from the bipartisan, bicameral support. It's going to be most likely introduced officially in the Senate later today. So it's going to probably be a Senate bill, but it does have a lot of bipartisan support, and it's sounding like it'll probably pass. I think the only contention right now is that it does not include additional stimulus checks. And you've heard a few senators come out saying they wish that was included in there, but I don't think that's enough to really hold it back from passing.
Katie, did they talk about blanket forgiveness?
I have not seen anything about blanket forgiveness yet. I don't know if Chris has started to read into it as well, so he might have more insight than I do, but I have not seen that yet.
Chris, I know I'm going to be very clear. You're going to give a little summary of something, but this is where did it come from? What is the status? It's not public, so you set it up first.
Yeah, I just got it like literally 45 minutes before we jumped on this. I have a The bill, it's 525-page bill. I only printed out the 157 pages that are probably most of interest to the people on here that relate to small business. The nice thing is, the $908 billion bill that we've heard kind of battered around here in the last week or so, they divided it into the two, as Katie said. There's the 160, which is mostly relating to state and local governments and liability protections for businesses and others. And then there's this bill, which is the $748 billion Emergency Coronavirus Relief Act. And $300 billion of this relates to SBA. Okay, so by my calculations, and again, this is proposal. This is just me trying to skim through this and understand this. It looks like about 247.6 billion of new PPP funds will be available. That's predominantly going to be second draw PPP. They are going to, as Katie said, they've taken a lot of the ideas that a lot of folks have had for many, many months, and they've kind of incorporated in here. So you've got the 7A guarantee going up from traditionally 75% to 90%. Wow. You've got an extension.
Is that for all loans, Chris?
Again, I'm not to that page yet, but the summary talks about that. They're also going to reduce the fees on 7A and 504 loans, provide loan subsidies for 7As. They're also going to extend the 1112 CARES Act section, which covered P&I payments. The problem is I don't know how long they're going to extend it for. And I don't know what's necessarily going to qualify. You can recall earlier this year, originally, so long as you had an SBA guaranteed portion of a loan prior to April 1, you qualified. And then we found out that, if you made any new loans between April 1 and the end of September, then those also qualified. I don't know what's going to necessarily qualify yet. And that's part of what I'm going to be digging through here this afternoon. But it's only the PPP, back to that. It's only going to be for firms with 300 or fewer employees that have sustained a 30% or more revenue reduction in a quarter in 2020. That's the stipulation. Okay. So they do.
Sorry, Chris, can you repeat that? And the reduction is for what year over year, quarter to quarter?
It's any quarter in 2020. And actually it backs it up if a business has been around for more than a year. Literally the text of the proposed bill goes through all this several pages worth. But basically in general, it appears that if you can demonstrate that you've got a 30% or greater reduction in revenues in any quarter during the covered period, you'll be eligible for this second draw PPP. And the maximum that you can get now under this is $2 million.
Right.
Okay. And it
appears that's based on 2019 sales. That's right.
Could be 2019 sales. Could be first or second or third quarter of 2020.
Okay.
It appears that you're going to be able to demonstrate this as a borrower, and lenders will review it. It does seem to. It definitely is streamlining the forgiveness for loans less than $150,000. It's down to, I read it right before I came in here, it's down to a one-pager. It appears that the documentation is going to now be the responsibility of the borrower, not the lender, which is a big change. And as we've talked about this before, that's the piece that's been hanging up a lot of these forgiveness submissions into SBA. You'll get into a lender, and then the borrower hasn't uploaded all the information that the lender's supposed to storage. So that's on this. It does clarify that PPP loans are meant to be tax deductible. It actually talks about that was the congressional intent. So that will probably be reversing, like we've talked about on this show many times. Some of the conclusions that the IRS came to a couple weeks ago, which scared a lot of folks. It did expand the forgivable expenses a bit, so it's going to include PPE. Okay, trying to think if there's any other major things here for purposes of us audience. I mean, those are the high points. It does also give some money towards EIDL as well. I don't have the figure off the top of my head, and then the rest of this, covers unemployment assistance and
so let's take it
and all sorts of other things.
Great. Well, I appreciate that, but let's take it from the top. Mm-hmm. So with what first of all, what you're talking about is a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a separate proposal from the slide we have up on the Coronavirus Relief Act? Or
no, that's exactly what I'm talking about right here. This $748 billion proposal is separate and apart from that 160, which is the state and local government and the liability protection aspect.
Okay.
This is the
And,
one that's non-controversial, as Katie said.
Right. And this is so, but it hasn't been introduced, but hopefully it'll be introduced today.
I think it's supposed to be this afternoon. Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, there's I hear a lot of good news in there, Lance.
Yeah.
A lot of great news. I mean, if there's some other things that I could ask for, but a second round or second draw PPP is excellent. New CARES Act payments are a great thing. A lot of people that came off the CARES Act payments are still struggling and still need some relief. Simplified forgiveness, a one-page forgiveness form where the participant bank doesn't have to collect all the documentation. That would be welcome. Everything in here, I could add a few things if you're asking for my wish list, but this looks great.
May very well be in.
It really does. And getting rid of the idle advance reduction and forgiveness.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Katie, how's that striking?
I think it sounds like this is probably going to honestly pass. I would be honestly surprised. The only thing is we obviously are waiting for Congress to pass the spending bill, and then probably soon after that they'll address this. But especially since this is the non-controversial side of it, I would imagine this portion in this bill will probably pass.
And the numbers are just amazing to me. $300 billion. If a year ago, Chris said, hey, I'm going to come on and talk about a $300 billion loan program for SBA, I would have said, all right.
You would have laughed me off. Yeah. And by the way, this and it looks like this is going to go to, at least the PPP, the second draws will go to March 31st. Now, it wouldn't shock me if it gets extended beyond that.
By the way, I think we need to learn from our British cousins. They have much better terminology than we have. They have a fill up, and they have bounce back loans and, filling it up for the second draw. Anyway, that's right. All right. I will stop that. I'm being cut off. Okay. This came from Bill yesterday. So obviously there is mention of 11-12 subsidies. Mm-hmm. And we're a little unclear. We
don't know how long it is or who's going to qualify, but yeah, there's definitely some dollars in here for that.
Hey, real quick, I wanted two more things, and then we'll sign off. Number one, there was a new question that came in right before we went on. Joseph, can you pull that up from Don? There it is. I have a loan that was canceled in E-Tran by mistake and need to attempt to get it reinstated. I completed the form, but I have no idea who to send this to. Is there an email address, Lance? What do we do?
Is it, if it's going to go to lrsc.servicing@sba.gov, and I'm going to get Fresno wrong, but I'm going to say it's fsc.servicing@sba.gov, one of the two, depending on where you're located, for a reinstatement of your SBA loan. If you'll go to the SBA website, sba.gov, type in the search box reinstatement form. If you pull up the reinstatement form, which you're going to have anyway to get it reinstated, it's going to have those email addresses on that reinstatement form.
And they're pretty quick, actually. We had two instances of this, and we just got it back yesterday, actually, after less than a week. So I think they're moving pretty quick on some of these things.
How does that happen, guys? How do we cancel something by mistake? Just check the wrong box? Or?
Oh, Bob, on the 1502 report, they could inadvertently mark it paid in full. They could mark it canceled. It happens. One of the most common servicing actions when I was deputy director at the center was reinstatements because of 1502 errors. I mean, the other reason is you don't pay your guarantee fee on time, but it's not uncommon for somebody to inadvertently mark something paid in full or canceled on the 1502 report. Lines of credit are the most common one, Bob. You get a line of credit, you have a new person doing the 1502, they look, it has a zero balance, and they mark it paid in full.
5.2 million loans, Bob. That's the answer. You're going to have you're going to have a few thousand things that need reinstated. There's going to be some human error occasionally.
By the way, on that guarantee fee, just because you haven't paid the guarantee fee doesn't mean that you don't have a guarantee as long as you pay it, right, Lance?
Yeah, if you didn't pay the guarantee on time as required by the authorization, you can always get that reinstated. You've just got to go to the pay.gov site, pay the guarantee fee, provide proof and a reinstatement form, and they'll reinstate the guarantee on that SBA loan.
Real quick, Lance, we had the webinar scheduled for tomorrow on the PPP and enforcement actions. We're based on all this new information. We're going to hold that over till next Tuesday, if that's okay with you, Lance.
Yep, perfect.
I apologize for those of you who signed up for it, but we're going to do it Tuesday. But we want to have the most up-to-date information, and we don't think we'll have it all by tomorrow. So that's the plan.
Bob, while we were talking, I got 5 texts from borrowers asking if the bill has CARES Act payments in it.
Hey, Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your feedback. Sure. Katie, as always, good job. Lance, I'm glad you're back on the grid. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great afternoon.
Take care, everybody.